Hello everybody, I'm the Craft Maiden, and in this video I'm going to show you how I made the Christmas stockings for my cats. I found the inspiration on Pinterest and I thought it was so cute and I wanted to make them. And if you want to make them yourself, you can always find all the tools and materials, including the template, in the description box down below. So without further ado, let's get this DIY started. I'm going to use this fabric. It's sort of velvety with a lot of sparkles on it. I have used it as a backdrop in some of my videos already, so you might recognize it. Before I'm making any moves on it, I'm just folding it over, making sure the right side is facing each other and the wrong side is outwards. Then I'm going to pin down the template and cut it out. As you can see here, I went ahead and cut out the fabric and the lining with a seam allowance of 1 cm all around the template. Before sewing the pieces together, I had to separate them and remove the excess cat hair. Yes, we are going to make stockings for my cats, but it doesn't mean they have to be covered in cat hair. And then I'm going to add the paw print and the letter. I cut out the paw print from the template and transferred it onto a piece of wadding and a white fabric that I had lying around. Then I reattached the template like so to have a guideline to where to place the paw print. Adding wadding is totally optional, of course. It looks kind of cute when it's attached, but it's a preference really, so do as you please. But if you are going to use it, make sure the wadding is a bit smaller than the actual fabric that is going to cover it, as you don't want the wadding to peek out between the stitch and the fabric. To keep the paw print from moving, I baste stitched it in place before moving on to the sewing machine. For the letter I used a gold faux sequin knit, and I did the same step as I did with the paw print. I like to keep the presser foot centered on the fabric edge like this and move the needle off center so to get an even and nice edge all around. If there is a really sharp turn, I usually move the needle stitch by stitch by the hand wheel. To add the letter to the center, I folded the fabric in half like so and used pins as a guideline, repeated the same step on the letter and attached it by using the same method as before by base stitching it in place. I didn't have any gold threads at hand, so I used a black one as it didn't show up as much as other colors did. Before sewing the stocking together, I removed all the base stitching. Now for the fun part, assembling. Place the two pieces with the right sides facing each other, pin the edges and stitch them together on the sewing machine, leaving the top part still open. I repeated the same step on the lining. Before turning the right side out, I cut the seam allowance like so. This is so the fabric can follow the curves that is now sewn into it. If this were to be skipped, it would look a bit misshapen. As you can see here, everything is flat. I did iron it off camera. I did also fold the seam allowance to the back side of the lining so it would fit a bit easier inside the stocking. Just make sure that you have the seam allowance from both the stocking and the lining facing each other so you have the right side where the presents is going to be later on. For the fold at the top of the stocking, I used the same kind of fabric as I did with the paw. I attached it to the lining first, and there I measured how long it needed to be and added 2 centimeters as seam allowance. The first thing I did was to stitch together the short ends. Just make sure the right side is facing each other. And there you go, and then I folded it in half, like so, making sure the right side is facing outwards now. I removed the lining from the stocking and turned it inside out, as you want the seam allowance to be on the inside when adding the fold. And by checking the seam allowance on the inside, I can see which side is the back side, and as I wanted the seam of the fold to be center back, I just measured it out to see where it should be placed, added a pin as a guide, and then placed the seam of the fold on top of it and then pinned it all in place. I added a ribbon to be able to hang it where I wanted. You can of course make a loop if you want that, or you can add a longer ribbon so to be able to hang it wherever you want. I cut it in the desired length, folded it in half, attached the folded part between the lining and the fold at the center back. Then I stitched it all together on the sewing machine. When the fold was attached, I once again placed the lining inside the stocking, making sure the seam allowance was facing each other and the right side is still facing the inside where the presents are going to be later on. Before attaching the stocking to the lining, I folded the seam allowance to the inside and pinned it and ironed it to make it stay in place. I did this once again off camera, but after it's done, I removed all the pins and aligned the edge to the seam of the fold. As I wanted to stitch it together from the inside, I placed the pins there, so they are a lot easier to remove when I'm on the sewing machine later on. The fold is going to cover the seam on the outside, but I still wanted it to be a bit less noticeable, so I added a red underthread and a white on the top. And once again I centered the pressed foot and moved the needle off center onto the lining. To finish off the ends of the ribbon, I folded it twice and hand stitched it in place, making sure the thread wasn't visible from the other side. And that's it for me this time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like, and while you are down there, why not subscribe and hit the bell button as well to get notified whenever I upload. And if you want more pictures of this or want any sneak peeks for future projects, you can always follow me on Instagram. The link is in the description box down below, together with all my social media. And for once, I want to thank Ozzy and Maximus for agreeing to be in this video by getting paid in treats. And to finish off this video, I want to wish you a happy holiday. And if you by any chance stay to the very end of this video, why not leave a Christmas tree in the comment section down below to share some holiday spirit. I hope to see you next time, but until then, God jul as we say here in Sweden.